Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This regular meeting of the Township Council is being held in accordance with the schedule of the meetings of the Township Council, established and adopted by the Township Council, which schedule designates the time, date, and place of this meeting. Adequate public notice of this meeting has been provided pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act. We are using an electronic amplifying recording device in order to obtain a clear and audible record. We request all those wishing to speak be recognized and state your name and address. The recording device will be so utilized by the Township Clerk's Office for the preparation of minutes and shall be the official record of the Township Council meeting. Madam Clerk, may I have the roll call, please?
Mr. Hutchison?
Present.
Mr. Owens?
Present.
Mrs. Stubbs? Mrs. Winters? Here. Mr. Mignon?
Here.
Mrs. Strato? Here. Mr. Mercado?
Present.
Mr. Carlemere?
Here.
Mr. Fardas?
Here.
Mr. Lechner?
He is excused.
Chief Harkins?
Here.
Mr. Chadwell?
And he is excused as well. Let the record reflect that Councilwoman Winters. We'll now open up the public portion. This is for agenda items only. Anyone wishing to address council may speak once at one time. Once all those wishing to address council have had their turns, they may address council a second time. There is a 15-minute time period for the first public portion, and each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. Is there anyone that would like to speak during the first public portion? This is for agenda items only.
I'm sorry, this is for what?
Agenda items only.
Okay, I'll wait till second portion, thank you. Yes, I believe there are some questions regarding the tax hike, which were not formally on the agenda, but I know a number of constituents have some questions about those.
That could be addressed in the second public portion.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Hearing none for the first public portion, we'll close the first public portion. Waive the reading, accept the minutes of executive session April 6, 2020, and regular meeting April 13, 2020, and April 27, 2020. I entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Second. Thank you. On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Mr. Owens?
Yes.
Mrs. Stubbs? Yes. Mrs. Winters? Yes. Mr. Mignon?
Yes.
Mrs. Strato? Yes. Mr. Mercado?
Yes. Next, we have a resolutions on the consent agenda. I just want to bring to the attention of my colleagues that Resolution 109, there is a replacement on your desk. It's edited. The rental receipt refunds are in the amount of $30, $30, and $60. So I entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented with that amendment.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Mr. Owens?
Yes.
Mrs. Stubbs? Yes. Mrs. Winters? Yes. Mr. Mignon?
Yes.
Mrs. Strato? Yes. Mr. Mercado?
Yes. We have some GTE Gov access emails. I'm going to read them. Some are statements, some are questions. So bear with us as I read through them. The first is from Joanne Carr at 50 Clement Drive, Somerdale, New Jersey. Given that many of our residents are out of work with no money coming in.
Michael Connell. Tom Phillips.
I'm going back to the question once again from Joanne Carr. Given that many of our residents are out of work with no money coming in, what justifies an increase in salary and wages? Who is scheduled to receive this raise in salary with wage increase? The salary and wages introduced each budget year embody figures that are required by the collective bargaining agreements. Mr. Carson, we have 6 of them, bargaining units. Is that correct?
Correct.
6 bargaining units. These figures represent a realistic view of contractual obligations and results of what contractual negotiations have settled or what they potentially will be during budget years when the collective bargaining agreements are expired. The township is bound by the collective bargaining agreements, which it must comply with. The figures are negotiated, they're reflected in the budget, are also from contract obligations settled prior to the current state of employment prior to the pandemic. The budget documents reflect those agreements and also increases that are likely to occur as a result of future collective bargaining. The township is currently in the process of evaluating where additional savings can be achieved. Budget projections tend to reflect expectations rather than hope for outcomes. So that's Mrs. Carr's question. Next is Patricia Brennan from 2402 Wimbledon Way. Rumor has it that you're considering a significant tax increase for our area. Are you kidding me? People are out of work. How do you expect him to pay even more when we are already one of the highest tax areas in the nation? How about combining a couple municipalities so that every street doesn't have a mayor and council and the police department? It's an absolute disgrace. The next email is from Louis DeMola from 56 Clement Drive. Regarding this year's tax budget, has the council taken into consideration the shortfall from the state and how that will impact our taxes for the next 12 months? Governor Murphy has stated that he will have to make spending cuts on the state level. What cuts does the council plan on making? Mr. DeMola, the budget was introduced on May 12th. Yes, May 12th. It's set for adoption or to be have a budget hearing on June 8th. All of us have a budget document. We've taken a look at it. That is the introduction of the budget. That does not mean that that's the actual budget that will be adopted on June 8th. We're all taking a look at it. In regards to Governor Murphy stating making spending cuts, some of those cuts may include aid to municipalities that will impact our budget. Next, from Mary Pat Condon from 52 Augusta Lane. In the midst of health and economic crisis, I'm told you're about to vote for a substantial 10%. Seriously? Property tax increase. Obviously, the easiest path is to conduct business as usual and raise taxes on homeowners to pay for whatever. Unemployment is an all-time high. Retirees are watching their retirement accounts dwindle. How do you expect people to come up with this additional expense? You need to do your jobs and cut out spending whenever possible. All non-essential programs and projects need to be canceled immediately. Examples: Pumpkin Festival, billboards and electronic signage, little parks that no one uses. You need to represent the residents of Gloucester Township, even if it means working harder to do so. On this, Ms. Condon, on the comment of 10%, there are people and folks that will lead you to believe that this is 10% on top of your actual entire tax bill. Your tax bill is made up of contributions to the two school districts, Black Horse Pike Regional School District and the Gloucester Township School District, Camden County, the library, fire, and then Gloucester Township. Of every dollar that you pay, roughly 29 cents, 28 cents goes to the municipality. So if there is an increase, if it goes forward at a 10-cent increase, that would be on the portion that you pay to the township, not your overall tax bill. Marilyn Lanning from 2 Stony Bridge Road. These are extraordinary times. We face a pandemic of global proportion and financial ruin of national proportion, and more appropriately, of local proportion. Many of us had to endure pay cuts or are now unemployed through no fault of our own. Our bills go unpaid, and for some of us, our families are going hungry, save for the long lines at the food banks. While our bank accounts go down, our anxiety goes up. There are stimulus payments being made to us at the federal level. And now there's the threat of a punishing tax increase at the local level. How does this make sense? These are extraordinary times, which call for extraordinary measures. Do the extraordinary thing and do not raise our taxes at this time. Raising taxes is a typical response for typical times, and I promise you, we do not have the money. Instead, make budget cuts or at least flatten the curve. We will understand less services or less parks or less anything. Ask the other municipalities what they're doing. I understand some are cutting taxes, but I know of no one who's raising them. No pay raises. The word township kind of means that we are all in this together, and we are. You are our elected leaders. We are your neighbors and your friends and your constituents. Do the extraordinary thing and stand with us during these times. When history recalls what happened during these times, there will be two lists of victims: those who lost their lives actually, and those who lost their lives financially. Don't add any more names of Gloucester Township residents to these lists. You cannot control the former, but you can certainly mitigate the latter. So I guess my question is, will you stand with us? Thank you. The next email is from Joyce Albinson from 719 Upton Way. I'm writing to beg you not to approve this 10% tax increase. I've lived here for 36 years, and my property taxes have increased every year. Every year, I am now retired, and these continual large tax increases will force me out of the home that I love. Have some compassion for the many residents who are struggling. Our pockets are not bottomless. Cut all of these unnecessary projects, such as memorial parks, especially when there are so many trying to decide whether to buy food or medicine. Has anyone reviewed the expenditures to see where cuts could be made? Ms. Albison, all of council has been taking a look at the budget. We will be setting up a subcommittee, which will be headed up by our vice president of council, with 2 members from council. Our next email is from Sandy Gentry, 10 Madison Drive. How can you justify raising taxes and salaries? Many of us
Terry Diamond.
were or out of work and struggling to pay our bills. Our taxes are very high enough already. As a tax-paying citizen, your employer, I want it known that I do not agree with your proposed tax changes and respectfully ask for no tax increases. Thank you for your email, Ms. Gentry. Susan Clark from 9 Merrimack Court. Mayor and Council, we have been residents of Gloucester Township since 1996. Love the neighborhood and the township. Since 1996, our taxes have more than doubled. So many of our friends and neighbors had to leave the area due to foreclosure and the astronomical taxes. My own 2 daughters had to take residence elsewhere because they could not afford to pay their mortgage on top of such high taxes. We would love to retire here, but simply cannot afford to. I have recently lost my job, and my spouse's hours have been drastically reduced due to the COVID-19 pandemic. These are very trying times, and to raise taxes yet again, is just rubbing salt into our wounds. We are suffering right now, physically, emotionally, and financially. We're all hardworking residents that cannot bear the burden of another tax hike at this time. Please, could you have some compassion on the average, already overextended families of this township and consider not raising our taxes at this time? We are all in this together. Some of us are just struggling to stay healthy, keep food on our tables, and a roof over our head. Please do the right thing. Thank you, Ms. Clark, for your email. Joan DuPont from 38 Furman Drive in Glendora. I'm concerned about the possible tax increase this year, especially in light of COVID unemployment. We currently pay way too much. Thank you, Ms. DuPont, for your email. Kenneth Alvinson from 719 Upton Way. Your proposed tax increase, if passed, will be the next straw on the way to breaking the back of the township we all call home. You are elected to represent the interests of the citizens, the homeowners of Gloucester Township. Your primary obligation is to us and not to any of the groups who serve the township, just as a corporate board's primary obligation is to its shareholders and not to its customers or employees. This is a situation where you must stand up for those who elected you in good faith. You must find ways to cut the budget, to find services that can be reduced, to find pay and benefit and capital increases that can be reduced or eliminated. You must work harder. You have not done your job yet. Just one example. We all know police overtime has ballooned beyond reason. There is no need for police to be stationed at time and a half at every road construction project, at every utility project, at every pruning project that occurs. You know it, the police know it. It is your job, and now should be the time to reopen the contract negotiation and to eliminate this wasteful wealth transfer program that provides no measurable safety benefit. I support the fine job our police do every day, and I'm not picking on them. This is just one obvious example you need to be doing to save this township from economic implosion before you approve a tax increase of the magnitude you are proposing. I am sure there are other similar savings that can and should be harvested. None of this is easy, but it is the job you asked to do, and we agreed you should do it on our behalf. Thank you and good luck. You can do this. You can be a hero to the citizens of Gloucester Township. Mr. Albison, when you see our police department standing at a road construction project or a utility project or a pruning project, the utility company or the construction company or those who are pruning the tree, they pay the township directly. That does not come out of overtime. Am I correct, Mr. Cardis?
Correct.
Thank you. Our next email is from Ashley Carullo Davis from 24 Spring Ridge Court. What cuts are being made in the township to help offset the salary increases and in general? What about the money that's left over from snow removal, salting the roads? We hardly had any snow this winter. Surely there is unused money there. Schools are closed, less money being spent on utilities. So why are you increasing our taxes? Sadly, this township only thinks of themselves. So much waste in the township. A salary increase for you is a complete tone-deaf slap in the face for the hardworking citizens of this township who have been laid off during this pandemic. Ms. Carollo Davis, we are still taking a look at the budget. In regards to the schools being closed, that is a different entity with a different budget. Their utility cost does not affect Gloucester Township, the municipality. In regards to a salary increase, council has not had a salary increase since 2006. It's remained flat through that entire time period. The next email is from Marilyn Lanny from 2 Stony Bridge Road. A few of my neighbors have reported that they looked at their tax bills for the next quarter and already see the proposed tax increase effective for August 2020. Is this true? And if yes, why was it done without full public debate and the required vote? We never had a chance to meaningfully oppose, did we? With any time there's a budget, there is a public portion. There's a time period of at least 4 weeks that takes place when the budget's introduced and to the time that the budget is adopted. There's a public portion. Mr. Cardis, those estimated tax bills, they are not going out yet.
They are going out, they're going to be going out the beginning of next week.
Okay. So is it possible some people may have received this tax bill already?
No.
No. Okay. All right, I'll follow up with Ms. Lanny regarding that. But there are estimated tax bills that will be going out. That is the first time, and I think Mr. Carson's tenure here has been our business administrator for close to 3 decades, that we've had estimated tax bills sent out.
Correct.
With that, I'll open up the public portion. Anyone who would like to speak about any item may do so. There's a 30-minute time limit on the public portion. I do have the discretion to extend it. If I do need to extend it, I will. If there are people that need to comment or like to ask a question, but each speaker will be limited to 5 minutes maximum. I now open up the first public portion.
Sam Sweet would like to speak.
Mr. Sweet, go ahead, sir.
Sam Sweet from Ariel. Glad to see everyone safe and healthy on council. President Mercado, you had said that a budget subcommittee is going to be headed up by Councilwoman Frato.
Yes.
Who else will be on that, or do we know yet?
I've asked Mr. Mignon to serve on that, and if any other member, Ms. Stubbs. So we have Mr. Mignon, Ms. Stubbs, and Ms. Strato.
And when will they be meeting?
That'll be at the discretion of the chairperson, Mrs. Strato.
And is that meeting open to the public?
No, it's not.
Why not?
We're not. It's a subcommittee meeting. They're going to sit down. They're going to sit down with the business administrator and go through the budget, sir.
So as of the moment, they have not met, they've not gone through the budget.
They have not met as a group.
And again, if they're meeting as a subcommittee, why can't the public be there? I know it's a subcommittee, but if they're meeting, discussing it, shouldn't the public be allowed to view this meeting, be there?
Well, I will leave that up to Ms. Trotto, but if on a subcommittee meeting, it is a meeting comprised of 3 members of council. They'll sit with the BA. It is not a public portion meeting. There will be no public comment. That's if Ms. Trotto wanted to go in that direction.
May I ask Ms. Trotter if she would like to go in that direction?
At this point, Sam, I'm just kind of finding out about the committee being put together, so we have not gotten any further than what you know tonight.
Okay, and then I guess my last question is council okay with a 10.5% tax increase on the municipal level?
I'm not comfortable with any tax increase, Mr. Sweet, but I am taking a look at this. In fact, this afternoon, I was going over the budget, had some questions for the business administrator. Again, that was the introduced at 10.8 was the introduced budget. It has not been adopted. There's an opportunity to review, make changes. It's a fluid situation.
What about the other members of council?
Would anyone else like to comment?
Sam, it's Scott Owens. I as well am not comfortable with any tax increase, and I've been reviewing the budget every day and taking a look, and I'll have some comments and questions for the business administrator as well as for the committee setup. So no, I'm pretty sure all of council's not thrilled with any tax increase.
Ms. Doug?
Mrs. Sweet, I don't think any of us are in favor, I'll speak for myself, are not in favor of the tax increase.
We can't hear that at all.
Tom has a microphone there.
Can you hear me now? I don't think anyone is in favor or happy about the prospect of a tax increase. I myself has. You can't hear me?
I think you need to speak into the phone.
Can you hear me now?
The telephone.
Over near the telephone.
Mr. Sweet, can you hear me?
I can't hear you now.
Okay, I'll speak for myself, but I know I'm speaking for my fellow members. No one wants to see a tax increase. It's not something that we're here for. We all pay the same taxes as everyone in the community. I don't want to pay any more taxes. I don't think anyone wants to pay, but sometimes, again, we have to take a look at things. We have a committee that's looking at the budget, and we're making an earnest effort to see where we can cut and what we can do to support our community. So I think the most important thing is to recognize no one is comfortable with it.
Anyone else?
Saying this is Michael Mignon, can you hear me?
From Clement Drive. No, I meant on
How are
council. Sorry, anybody else on council?
Yeah, Sam, it's Michael Mignon, can you hear me?
Michael, I think you need to come over near the phone.
Why? Why is that?
Not work for us, because the microphone's on that.
I think I'm hearing.
This is Councilman Michael Mignon. Sam, I concur with my fellow council member said. Nobody wants to see a tax increase. We are affected by it also. With the subcommittee, we will look to see where any possible savings could be. But yes, nobody likes a tax increase. And it is tough around the times that we're dealing with right now.
Mr. Sweet, your time has come up. Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
Yes.
May I have your name, please? Hello?
This is Louis DeMola. Hello?
Okay.
Not Louis DeMola, I'm live.
All right, Mr. Demola, how are you this evening?
Yes. Fine, how are you?
I'm very well.
Just, good. Just a point for information. There is, the August tax bill is listed on the Gloucester Township, website. So it is showing it, for example, mine showed a $100 increase in August. So the bill must, if they're not mailed out, at least, you can find out what the intent number is based on that website. So you have that information.
Okay, so it is posted, Mr. Demola, I'm sorry, so just to clarify, it is on our website, but you have not physically received it, correct?
That is correct.
All right, thank you.
And I appreciate the fact that everyone's in the same township and we all have to pay the tax increase, which none of us like to do. But council seems to be the only one that has any ability to make that decision. There's no way for us to have input other than this forum to make a decision on where we cut taxes. So just keep that in mind. I also aware of the fact that, as you know, with the state cuts, that the municipality will probably not get the money they're anticipating from the state, and so we'll have to endure additional cuts later in the year. Just want to make sure we're aware of that.
Oh, we are aware of that, sir. I'm not sure if you heard my response to your eGov email that you had sent. That was at the beginning of the meeting. So I responded that we are aware that with the fiscal budget got moved from the state of New Jersey to September 30th, that the aid that we received from the state may not be the aid that we've received in previous years. So we're fully aware of that.
Okay. The estimated tax, is that for the August, going back to that for a second, is that based on what the anticipated budget is or a shortfall from the 1920 budget?
It is based on the anticipated budget, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. DeMola. Have a great evening. Thank you for your input. Is there anyone else?
Yeah, Mr. Blackwood.
I'm sorry, who was that?
Go ahead, Pete.
Go ahead.
Okay, Mr. Krug's allowing me to go first. This is Peter Heinball.
Okay. Mr. Krug. Good evening.
Good evening, President Mercado, and good evening, Council. A couple of comments just on some of the eGov and initial commentary I heard. While I'm glad to hear Ms. Stubbs, Mr. Mercado, Mr. Owens, and Mr. Mignone are not comfortable with tax increases, I do want to point out that since 2010, we've had greater than a 40% tax increase. Our total taxes were about $32 million in 2009, and last year in 2019, they were $48.7 million. So I hope we can change the tide, but to say you're not comfortable with tax increases may be disingenuous.
Mr. Krug,
Highlight that
Mr. Krug,
10.5% increase
Mr. Krug.
is coming strictly from the local tax for municipal purposes. The schools and the county, for the most part, have kept their taxes levied against the citizens about the same. I did appreciate the Gov emails, hearing more of them and hearing stories, but I think we do need to get into the details and dig into the weeds of the numbers. As such, on the May 11th council meeting where the resolution to introduce this was brought up, I made a formal request for an audit-like combing through of the budget for cost savings. Obviously, 2 weeks has passed since then. I wanted to see if council had an opportunity to earmark any line items up until this point.
Mr. Krug, I was trying to respond to your earlier statement. I'll answer the latter first. or question. All of us have the budget document. We have not met collectively as a group. There will be a subcommittee that will take a look at it, provide some recommendations. But in addition to that subcommittee, each council member has a responsibility to take a look at the budget. And if there's any questions they may have or any recommendations, forward that to the rest of the council and also have a conversation with the business administrator. I'm going back to your first statement regarding taxes from 2010 to 2020, where the average tax increase was 0.29. In that time period, there was 5 years where taxes were not increased at all. Mr. Krug, so.
Are you speaking specifically on local taxes for municipal purposes?
Exactly. So when you were speaking earlier,
Okay.
you were speaking
So
about, Mr. Krug.
overall, it's gone up
Yes.
40%.
Mr.
So
Krug.
I just want to make it clear, the bill that we received is 40% higher than from 2009. I don't think we look at our Comcast bill that comes home to us and deviate between all the different fees. If the Comcast bill is up 40% over a 10-year period, it's up 40%. It's as simple as that. But getting back to the details,
Mr. Krug.
I also received the budget similar to as you did. Page 13 on communications development training, you see a $2,000 increase for what is requested when last year, 2019, $1,132 was spent. I don't particularly see a need to have a $2,000 increase there. Page 15, Township Clerk elections, goes from 45,000 last year budgeted, where they only spent 41,000, and we budget 50,000 this year. I think the 45,000 would be fine to keep. Township Clerk legal advertising, 6,000 last year budgeted, 5,400 spent. The budget this year is 10,000. That's a $4,000 increase that does not seem necessary. Township Clerk training, $0 budgeted last year, only $600 budgeted and spent over the last 5 years, although we want to budget $3,000 for this year. I have 50 other line items from going through this document that I'd like to go through with Ms. Strato, Ms. Stubbs, and Mr. Mignone on the subcommittee, where I think we could save hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars for what is being budgeted this year.
Mr. Krug, so I tried to respond to some of the statement that you made, but you kept talking. And you understand how we do our process here, how we do our public portion. You asked a question, I try to respond to it. You just ignored what I was saying. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Yes, this is Peter Heimball.
Mr. Heimball, good evening.
Yes, good evening to you. It's not easy speaking over this format, Mr. Mercado. So if Mr. Krug wants to get all his statement out before you run the clock out on him, and then you respond afterwards, I think that's the appropriate way to handle the public portion.
But Mr.
But
Heimball,
I do have my own questions.
But Mr. Heimball, you can hear me, and you waited for me to respond. The prior speaker, Mr. Krug, just disregarded any type of comments back because Mr. Krug had.
Okay, yeah, great. Okay, you win that one. Okay, so I have some questions.
Pete, let's not play this again, Pete. And come on, Pete, you're not going to be a victim here. Pete, ask your question. You have
Yeah, okay, I have questions. Thank you for your for listening. We just heard that it's a possibility the state might reduce the aid for that'll be revenue for the township. Is that
there's a likelihood?
Is that a possibility?
There's a possibility.
So,
there's a likelihood of that.
Right. So this budget that we're looking at that calls for a 10.5% increase assumes 100% of that state aid coming to us. So if any state aid is held back, that'll just worsen this 10.5% increase we're looking at based on this budget. The budget we're looking at assumes we're getting all this aid, all the aid from the state. So this 10.5% increase, the state aid isn't even taken into account for a 10.5% increase. Is that an accurate statement?
Mr. Cardis?
So we budgeted the state aid numbers that the state directed us to budget. That was the number that they released in, I believe, February. I don't know what they're going to do in terms of holding back state aid. I'm assuming that if they do that, they're going to probably tell us that we need to pass some type of financing, a bond for current shortfall of revenue. So there's a lot to be.
Right, I understand that. That's not really my question. My question is, this 10.5% increase assumes we're getting all the state aid. So that's really not a response to anything to do with the 10.5% increase.
That's correct.
10.5% increase must be in other areas.
We budgeted what the state told us to budget for state aid, which is the same number we got last year.
Yeah, right. And you're still calling for a 10.5% increase.
I don't like a tax increase either. I live in the town also. I put the budget together,
Well,
and I think it's a responsible budget that promotes the public welfare and safety and health, and that's what I put together. So.
Okay, so if some state aid, any issues with state aid do not make up any of this 10.5% increase. Can you explain some of the items that do make up this 10.5% increase?
What caused it? Is that what you're asking me?
Yes.
There's a number of things that cause it. There's a number of appropriations that have gone up. There are revenues that have gone down. A big part of it is the debt service. When we permanently financed last year, it increased our debt service by $1.8 million. That's a big piece of it. FICA and pensions up almost $500,000. I mean, there's numerous things in there that are causing this. I mean, we've depleted fund balance down to a point where there's only about $400,000 left in there. If we take that down to zero, we take a good chance that our bond rating is going to take a hit, and then that would be a big problem for the township.
So this increase is to keep our bond rating?
This debt service increase?
So we're doing, no, this 10.5% increase is so we can retain our bond rating.
You're losing me. I said that there's $420,000 left in fund balance. If you deplete it to nothing, then you take a good chance that the rating agencies will drop you a grade in your ratings, and then it is a problem. Yes, that's not a lot of money to hold in fund balance for a municipality this size with this kind of budget.
You're difficult to hear, and we are talking about a 10.5% increase. I think the public should hear, even if your explanation takes 30 minutes, not just 30 seconds of some large numbers. We're owed an explanation, I believe, of why we're looking at a 10.5% increase. And we haven't been given one yet. We heard some apologies that no one likes a tax increase. We've heard that. We've heard that the budget committee is going to meet, things like that. But we haven't heard an explanation for the 10.5%. And I think the public is owed an explanation. So even if it takes 15 minutes, 30 minutes, we're owed an explanation. And we're owed one that's a little more audible than what's being spoken so far. It's difficult to hear over the phone. Let me change the subject real quick. Isn't
your time is up.
even a subject?
Pete, if we could, Mr. Mercado had to step away for a moment. Your time is up. If we can move along, and we can always come back to you if you don't mind at the end. The next person that wishes to speak?
Joanne Carr.
I'll be back.
Good evening, Mrs. Carr, go ahead.
I seem to remember that there are two budgets that the council addresses. Is there another budget coming later in the year?
Joanne, sorry about that. Joanne, we usually have the operating budget, and then we have the capital budget. In that capital budget, we address issues such as sidewalks, street improvements, drainage projects. That has not been introduced yet from Mr. Cardis.
Okay, the budget that we're dealing with at the present time, I think your response to my email was that the salaries that were being increased were because of contractual agreements.
That's part of the collective bargaining agreements, yes.
All right. What does the council do to make the bargaining agreements more in the residents' favor? I know the people that are working and looking for increases are just like us. They need their increases, but the people in the township need to be looked after. Is there a liaison from the council that goes to all the negotiations?
No, that is part of contract negotiations is done by the administration. So that falls in the direction of the mayor, the business administrators are involved with. We also have outside counsel and the human resources director is involved in that as well.
Okay.
Our role is to, Ms. Carr, our role is to, when it's presented to us, an agreement is to move forward and pass a resolution to accept the collective bargaining agreement.
I appreciate your efforts. I'm just trying to nitpick and find ways to save, and I was thinking that we need to have better bargaining so that it's not costing us on this end. And when will the second budget be coming out for the
We don't know.
maintenance of the township?
We don't know. We have no idea.
When does it usually come out, Tom?
Many times it's done in advance of the actual budget. This time, because of the concerns we have with the budget, we held off.
Will the effects of this budget have an effect on that second budget?
It may.
Well, I appreciate your efforts, but I hope you have great success in finding ways to reduce this budget because we all need help. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Carr, and I hope you're doing well.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Is there anyone else on the line that would like to speak?
Ray Calder, please.
Mr. Polidoro.
Good evening, council. As you guys well know, I've been coming to the meeting since around 2006. And there are things that I bring up. Sometimes you guys tee me off real well. I try to maintain composure and be above board. As I listen to a lot of what's going on, we're going through an unprecedented time. And part of this, it's tragic that we're going through, that most people maybe are not grasping. While we're going through this pandemic, there are mainly elderly people that are dying, and they're dying alone. Their families cannot be with them. Their loved ones cannot say goodbye, cannot say I love you. There's many things that are being lost during this pandemic. And then to add insult to injury, those same people that we lose that die alone, maybe by the hand of a nurse or a doctor in a hospital facility, okay, they can't be properly laid to rest. And that being said, this is a time like no other. It compares to many other tragedies that we've had in our country. But what's tragic also is while we're dealing with it on a more local level, the young people in this township, they call their parents, mom and dad, their grandparents, mama, papa, are being greatly affected. These are people that paid their mortgage off years ago. And it's coming to the point where their taxes are so damn high that they're probably paying more in property tax with their mortgage paid off and losing their homes. Now, I understand how hard you guys work. I'm not a numbers guy. I'm a simple guy. I don't have a dog, so I don't use doggies barking. Can someone please mute who has their dog in the background?
Please mute that. That's ridiculous. Please mute that.
Can you please allow me that time, Mr. McCullough?
Hold on for a second. Can everyone please mute their phone with the exception of Mr. Polidoro, please? Thank you. Ray, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mercado. And again, I'm not going to go down the road of the vacant homes. My concern is the major effect this has on every age category, particularly the elder folks. When they say that they get a property tax relief or property tax freeze, if I'm not mistaken, and please correct me if I'm wrong, anyone on council, you keep raising taxes, they keep having to pay that. On a fixed budget, they keep having to pay what you raise, and they must wait for the state to refund the difference. Am I wrong?
The state refunds it.
The state
Maybe
refunds
not.
Whoever's speaking, I cannot hear.
it. Ray, the state refunds it.
But they've got to pay every time you raise taxes. They've got to meet that local property tax, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. So, in the many years that we have been doing this, and there seems to be a pattern, as I always bring up, 2010, you raise taxes, 14, 16, 18, 20. There's a clear pattern there. And we've always asked, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way. And you guys give it your best effort, but you always fall short. There's got to be something more you can do. Now, one council member constantly comes in and questions whomever speaks at the microphone during the normal meetings. What would you cut? What would you cut? That's not something you ask residents. That's something you look in the mirror and you ask yourself. But the bigger question is, we have a mayor who submits that budget to his administrator. Have you guys, anyone on council, pose that question in the same tone of voice that you do to the people of Gloucester Township? That was a question. Thank you. And the last thing that I'm going to say is, when you have had to in the past make things happen in the years that you needed them to happen, you've done some things when, let's say, the state did not allow something to go into the budget because the sale did not go through. You found money and you made it happen. I think there's a miracle in there. And I don't want to think that those even numbered years add up to the zeros for the odd number years, that you can do better than you ever have before. This time demands that. These people demand that. Parents, the grandparents need your help more than ever. And I think you can do better than a subcommittee that's not sure if they want to hear people listen to their conversation. I think it's time, to handle, maybe in the future, looking at a zero-based budgeting. And for people that live in their homes, zero-based budgeting would be no different than cleaning out your garage the right way. Take everything out of the garage, throw it out in the driveway, and then only bring back in what you need. And that is something I don't ever remember this township doing, but maybe it's time because people are hurt. I want to thank you for your time. I also want to wish you all well. Stay healthy and safe.
Thank you, Mr. Polidoro. Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
Yeah, this is Michael Connolly, Blackwood.
I'm sorry, can I have your name again?
Michael Connolly.
Mr. Conley, how are you today?
Good, how are you? Mr. Votto,
Can I have your address, sir?
These meetings
Mr. Conley, may I have your address, please?
524 Portman.
All right, please continue. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay, so, no, that's okay. So I don't normally get on these. I was speaking with a friend of mine who asked me to, get involved and get in on these. And I've been listening, and I got in just a few minutes later, you were reading the emails from some of the residents. And I apologize, I don't know you, but I can tell just by your contentious tone of voice proves what Mr. Polidoro is trying to say right there, where nobody answered that question. That is an absolute shame that you did not answer his question. He has a perfect point as to the frustrations of the people in those emails and the people that are on this call. I think it's embarrassing to have a council ignore Mr. Polidoro's question like that. I don't know Mr. Polidoro. I've never been on these calls. We've been on a lot of the meetings. But I find it contentious the way you read those emails from these folks. These are the people that you represent, right? So, to me, it seems like you're frustrated in having to explain to the people of this community what you guys go through working on these budgets. We understand that's a lot of work, but you know what? That's what your job is. Take the time to educate the people. And take the time, instead of throwing out numbers that people don't understand. Not everybody's a CPA, right? But take the time with these people. And show some compassion, especially now with the COVID epidemic going on. There's people that are suffering financially out there. There was a few people that said, yeah, we don't like to raise taxes. I don't totally believe in that. I've been a township resident all my life, and I've never seen any problem with taxes being risen in this township, with a lot of services not being done. So I would just say, have some compassion for the people that are emailing you, speaking up on these calls. And by the way, the $2,100 budget line on page 13, I think that Mr. Krug asked about, IT communication. You guys might want to look at investing in a better way to have remote calls, because this technology you guys are using right now is horrible. You can't understand a word you guys are saying. It sounds like you guys are sharing a cell phone in a room together. And I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Mr. Conley, before you go, I'm just going to reiterate the comment that you made at the beginning. You don't know me. And yes, I do know that this is my job. And I read the emails that were forwarded to us. When you talk about education, I talk about a pie chart every time we have a budget and talk about where everyone's dollar goes towards. Unfortunately, I can't operate in the gray. I have to operate in a black and white world when it comes to a budget. I can't sit back and play Monday morning quarterback, such as your neighbor. So I'm sorry that you didn't like the way I read emails. And I disagree that we're not showing any compassion for our fellow residents. But thank you very much for your phone call. Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Mr. Conley, we're moving on to the next person.
Let me just respond.
Mr. Conley, we're moving on to the next person.
You can ask anybody on this call about the contentious tone reading those emails.
Thank you. Who would else like to speak, please?
If no one else is on.
I'm sorry, Mr. Sweet, you spoke before. Is there someone else that'd like to speak? Is there anyone?
Alice Harvey, hello? Alice Harvey, 26-year resident of Valleybrook.
Hi, Ms. Harvey. How are you today?
Okay, how are you guys?
I'm very well.
I just have a quick question. I think everyone really expressed, I think, the collective feeling of the community about this proposed tax increase. So I'm not going to add to that. I just mentioned that I'm literally in the process of trying to locate the 2020 proposed municipal budget on glowtrip.com. I can't find it on the website. Now, Mr. Sweet graciously has sent it to me, but I'm just concerned about other people that may be wanting to look at that budget on the website. I can't find it. So if maybe you could post something that's more prominent on the website, where we could go to there, we could go to it and look at the budget, it would be very helpful.
Ms. Harvey, it is on the main page under downloads. If you still have a problem with that, can you send me a quick email at omercado@glowtwip.com, and I'll make sure you receive it.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone that else would like to speak that has not spoken beforehand? Okay, Mr. Sweet, you'll be our last caller.
Mr. Honeyball, I thought you wanted to talk before Mr. Mercado.
Thank you, Mr. Mercado. Sam Swiss again, 18 Elizabeth Place.
Dan, can you ask for an extension as well?
Sir, who was
Mr.
that?
Mercado?
Mr. Sweet, you're
I
gonna be
believe
our
that was
last.
Mr. Krug.
If anyone else who has not spoken would like to speak, I will extend it. Those that have spoken beforehand, unless you have anything else to add, I'm not going to extend it. Mr. Sweet,
I do have additional things.
who is that?
That's Mr. Krug.
Mr. Sweet and Mr. Krug, and then we'll end the public portion. Mr. Sweet?
Okay, Sam Sweet, 18 Elizabeth Place. My question is, I'm going to go back to the budget subcommittee meeting.
Again,
Well,
Mr. Sweet.
I know you said,
Mr. Sweet, is this
I'm wondering, would like,
Mr. Sweet, is this something that you're adding new to what you previously said?
yes, it's a new question.
Okay, I'm gonna give you the benefit of the doubt because it doesn't sound like it's going that way, but go ahead.
I would like to ask Ms. Trotto to contact me as to when the meeting is and if she would allow me to sit in on it, if that's possible.
Ms. Toronto, you heard Mr. Sweet.
Under the conditions, you can't bring anybody in.
That's true.
Is there,
Ms. Toronto will respond to you, Mr. Sweet. She has your email.
okay, thank you. That's all I wanted. Thank you, Mr. Mercado.
Mr. Cruz?
Stay safe and healthy.
All right, you as well. Mr. Krug, you're our last speaker.
Good evening again, council. I would ask the exact same question of myself that Sam just asked. I would like to be involved in the subcommittee. I will preempt the subcommittee and I will send all 50 line items that I have earmarked to this point to council immediately following this meeting in a show of good faith. And hopefully we'll be allowed to be a part of that subcommittee as a resident stakeholder. I did want to bring up
Mr.
a
Krug?
couple of topics.
Mr. Krug?
Yes, sir.
This subcommittee is made up of 3 members of council. If Ms. Trotto allowed you to sit in on that meeting, you would just be sitting in. You're not part of the committee. And as a resident stakeholder, that's what we are. We're elected officials, elected by residents of Gloucester Township to represent them. But thank you for your interest. Next question.
Yes, and as the representative, I am sending you my concerns, approximately 50 line items, highlighted with questions and with comments to make it very simple and hopefully add value to this subcommittee. Did want to address a couple of the comments that come from this meeting. One was a eGov email that came in talking about snow removal and wasn't there savings from last year. Yes, page 53 of the budget worksheet, streets overtime for snow removal, budgeted in 2019 was $75,000. We only utilized $36,000, but for some reason, the budget for 2020 is going up by $25,000 to $100,000. In addition, another comment that came through, I believe it was on eGov as well, was that overtime for police with regard to utility and tree trimming. And immediately upon hearing that, I knew myself that that's of course paid for by the utility company and the tree trimmers. But a budget item from the police appropriations for 2020 that could be questionable would be the $500,000 for police uniforms, which the appropriation in 2019 was $310,000, and $290,000
8,000 was spent, so actually under that threshold. So I don't know that I see the necessity, based on historical numbers, for a $200,000 increase in appropriations there. I have, like I said, I have many more line items that we could go over and would be happy to help the subcommittee. Of course, I'll send these comments. I did want to thank Pete for understanding, how difficult it is to get so many points across in a 5-minute time frame. In addition to, I believe it was Michael who I believe made some valid comments as well. I thank you, council. Once again, you can expect about 50 line items with questions, comments, and I hope, Ms. Trotto, that you'll allow Sam and I to be a part of the subcommittee, because as you heard tonight, everyone wants to work together to find cost saving. And for over a year now, at every council meeting, I've been asking you to look for cost saving. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening. We'll now close the second public portion.
There is a statement, question for you.
Okay.
Online. From Ray Polidoro, how will you possibly conduct this meeting on June 8th when the final vote on the budget is read? This YouTube and conference audio are not synced. The conference must be improved if many are to be able to speak.
Mr. Polidoro, thank you for your comments. We'll look into improving our communication. If you look at some of the other municipalities, we're probably ahead of it because we're online and we also have the ability to communicate people via phone and not just emails. So we'll look to improve that for the June 8th meeting. Thank you. Calling the directors.
Mr. Parliament?
I think the only comment that I would make is a word of caution to the subcommittee members.
Can you please use your microphone, Mr. Carmen?
I guess the only,
Or Dave, you can use this if you want.
I guess the only comment I would have is directing it to the members of the subcommittee, which is a caution against opening up your subcommittee to members of the public, because you defeat the purpose. Because you defeat the purpose of a subcommittee to meet with flexibility of time, and you are a fact-finding committee appointed by the governing body. When the subcommittee decides to open it up to members of the public, I think you get yourself in trouble, because one member is going to say, well, why is member A allowed and I'm not allowed? You are free, I think, as a subcommittee member to ask someone from the public to provide you information to review, but opening up your subcommittee meeting to members of the public, I think you get yourself into trouble, because the first person that says, I wanted to participate, you said no, why did you say no to me? I think you get yourself into a little bit of difficulty.
Thank you for that, Mr. Carlemare. Please continue communicating with Mr. Carlemare regarding this. Thank you. Calling directors.
Mr. Cordez?
Nothing to report.
Mr. Luckman? Or no, I'm sorry, Chief Harkins?
Nothing to report.
Mr. Hutchison?
I look forward to hearing back from the subcommittee. I wish you luck in that endeavor. And I listened to all of the emails tonight, people who spoke tonight. This is a tough time for us as council people, and we recognize it's far more difficult for the residents of the town. Thank you. Be safe.
Can everyone on the line please mute their phones, please? Thank you.
Well, I want to thank everyone who participated in the meeting tonight via phone and or web. We appreciate the comments and listen and do take it to heart, and we'll respond accordingly when each of us take the opportunity to keep reviewing the budget and send our recommendations to the subcommittee. Chief, thanks as always for excellent leadership, to the men and women of the police department for risking their lives, for keeping us safe as residents, as well as all the other first responders and non-essential workers out there. Today is the statewide Census Day of Action. My talking point that I've had since early April. This is obviously a great time to complete the census. Again, it's important for funding from the federal government, from the state, for all different issues that we see locally here. Take 5 minutes, fill out the census online. It doesn't take long. Everyone in your household, and make sure your neighbors and friends do it as well.
Mrs. Stubbs?
I would like to thank everyone for their genuine concern. With what we're dealing with. And we'll do our best and have a good evening.
Mrs. Winters?
I would just like to thank everyone for their comments and concern. We are listening. I just want to remind people, please be safe, please be smart, please wear your mask. It's not only respectful to everyone around you, but it is especially respectful to the healthcare workers that are dealing with this on the front lines and are putting themselves at risk. I know people think, I don't have to do that, but you know what? If you have any family members that are in the medical profession, or if you have any family members that have contracted this virus, then yes, you do need to do that. So please be smart, please be safe. Thank you.
Mr. Minion?
Thank you all for the comments and the participation. Thank you to all the first responders in Gloucester Township. And everybody, please be safe. Have a great night. Thank you.
Mrs. Trotta? Thank you all for your comments this evening, and Mr. Parliament, I will take into account what you had mentioned about the subcommittee. I do see the comments about the subcommittee, and as I proceed forward, I will reach out, but please do send any of your comments or questions and concerns regarding the budget for us to look at to the email address. Thank you. Mr. Mercado?
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in and calling in, and thank you for your comments. I want to thank the Gloucester Township Police Honor Guard and the mayor for continuing the Memorial Day services as they went to all the monument sites this past Monday. If you had a chance, you can see that on the Gloucester Township's Facebook page. Please continue in regards to the budget. If you have any questions, send me an email. I'm trying my best to respond to emails. For those who have sent me emails, and if I've not replied to you yet, I will. But if you have a question, ask the question. Don't rely on what you see on Facebook or what someone may tell you. Go to the source. Send me an email. Send any of my colleagues on council an email, and we'll try to address it as best we can. With that, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Have a great evening. Hang on a second. Good job, man. You're a real baseball.